Hi guys, welcome back to Girl Therapy. I'm your host Nicole, and I hope you had a great weekend. Whenever you're listening to this, I hope that you are doing well. Before I jump into today's topic, I'm just going to give a few life updates. I'm feeling great. My mental health is probably at like a 9 out of 10, not to brag or whatever. I've just been really prioritizing my mental health, and I think like my trip to Texas just did wonders for me. I really needed to step out of Miami for a hot minute. Yeah, everything's been really good. I'm really excited for next week because in 9 days, I am going to be in LA with Livy. I haven't seen her since New Year's, so this has probably been the longest we've been without seeing each other. I'm so excited to see her new space and to be with her and record again. And yeah, we're going to do an episode together for sure. Make sure you look out for that. But those are kind of the updates on my end right now. Nothing too crazy. I did just book a flight to Texas for my birthday. That's actually a big update. So I'm going to be spending a week there at the end of March. There's going to be so much fun stuff happening. I know the content's going to go crazy. I'm so excited to see Caitlin again. Me and her just have like such great energy together. So a lot of like fun trips coming up. So make sure you guys are stalking me so you stay up to date, because I'm sure there's going to be some good episodes and just, some tea coming out. If you have anything that you recommend that I do in Austin for my birthday, let me know. Like really good food places. I already know that I want to do like a pedal tavern and karaoke and maybe a comedy show and lots of good food. Just gonna be a good time with a few good friends. Livy will be there as well, so I'm gonna be seeing her a lot. She was the one who kind of made me want to come on here and talk about what I'm going to talk about today, which is the fear of abandonment and the fear of rejection. She said something to me a couple days ago, and she continues to say this to me, and it really just throws me through a loop every time she says it. So we were talking about the man in LA who I went out on 2 dates, one hangout with. Livy did meet him. I reflect a lot on that month when I was talking to him, because it brought up a lot of fears that I never realized I had, because he was somebody who was very forward. He definitely challenged me. He challenged me to speak my mind. He was always inviting me like out with his friends and like inviting me to do stuff. He was constantly like the one to text me first, to the point that he said something to me and he was like, "You don't text first, do you?" It never made me realize like how afraid I am of reciprocating sometimes. People who challenge me or people who stir up these insecurities in me, I am so afraid of abandonment and rejection from them. I don't know, it's people who I value, I guess, their opinion or value their presence or have real interest in, that scare the shit out of me. And I'm so afraid of being abandoned by these people that as soon as they show a small sign of being anything like my father, or as soon as I start to feel like I might be getting a little invested in this person, I tend to shut off and almost reject them first before they have a chance to reject me. So that means not putting myself out there, not texting them, putting up this front that I don't care, because I'm so afraid of, if I do care and I do put myself out there, then they'll actually reject me, and then I have to deal with those feelings. I was talking to Livy about him because he was somebody who made me realize that I have this major fear of rejection, because I would never text him first, and she'd be like, "Nicole, text him first, ask him to hang out." Like, he initiated the last time, like, ask him to hang out. And I'd be like, texting a man, asking him, "Hey, do you want to like come over? Hey, do you want to go to the beach?" is so scary for me. I just always feel like I should be the one getting chased, which I should be. But to a point, it has to be a game of tennis. And I was not playing tennis. I was just being a terrible partner. I was just standing there waiting for the ball to get hit at me constantly. She would be like, "Nicole, just text him." And I did. And I finally did it once. And I texted and I was like, "Hey, do you want to whatever?" But when I brought him up to Livy just recently, she was like, "I actually liked him for you because he challenged you. And he stirred up these emotions because it was able to give you insight of where you still need to grow and where you still need to heal." I started to get over these fears with him. She was like, "I still think that you let your ego get in the way, and I still think that he let his ego get in the way." And she says this thing to me that just, oh my God, it was like a dagger to the heart. Like, hearing your best friend say this, because usually your best friend's supposed to be on your side, right? She goes, "Nicole, I think that he is the one that got away. I think he is the one that got away. Not you're the one that got away. He's the one that got away." And I'm like, oh my God, gasp. A man like is the one that got away. So then in my head, I'm like, oh my God, did I slip up? Like, did I fumble? Because I just can't imagine a world in which I fumble. Like, it's always the men fumbling me. I fumbled a man. And for like Livy to give this man that much credit to be like, I fumbled him, because she's met him too. So she was like, you fumbled. And I was like, bro, I fumbled? I'm sorry. I still can't wrap my head around it. When she says that, it triggers me. I'm like, did I fumble? Because I got in the way of myself. I fumbled. I want to bring up this fear of rejection and abandonment because until him, I didn't realize like how deeply rooted these issues were, because I'm so good at protecting myself that I don't even put myself in situations where I would feel rejected, if that makes sense. Let's just like go back all the way then, because it doesn't always have to be like the fear of rejection with guys. It could be with anything, with your career, with your job, with things that you want to do. This fear of rejection is deeply rooted in us just as humans. We're all born with this natural want to fit in because that's how we used to have to survive, right? Like there's protection in numbers. If we wanted to survive, we'd have to be in a tribe, we'd have to be in a group, we'd have to be in a pack, we have to be accepted. If we're not accepted by those people, we're not going to survive. So even though we don't, have to be in packs to survive anymore, that's still our instinct. So in high school, and I was talking about this with Caitlin because me and her went to high school together, we were thinking about all the kids that we used to think were so cool that we tried to fit in with. I'm looking back and I'm like, I used to hang out in this guy's basement. It was like a crack house, literally a crack house. We used to hang out in their basement. It was like dirty and gross, and they would just sit there and like skip class and like smoke weed all day and not care about anything and do drugs. And I looked up to them. I thought they were so cool. I wanted to be friends with them so bad that I was willing to sacrifice my character, who I was. I was willing to try things. I never really did hardcore drugs. Like I was always had like a pretty good head on my shoulders in that sense. But I mean, me drinking like Dubra or like Captain Morgan in like this basement with string lights, thinking it was so cool. It was just like so weird. And we idolized those people. They were, 1 or 2 years older than me, and I thought they were the coolest people in the world, and I would do anything to fit in with them. And looking at it now, it's like, why did I think those people were cool? And I think it's because, one, I've like grown into myself and I have my own values now, and the things that I value are not the same as that. Maybe if I valued those things, I would still think they were cool. But because I know me and I value so much of like my health, my wellness, how I give back to the world, those people aren't cool to me, and I don't care to fit in with them, and I don't care if they don't like me. And same goes for pretty much everybody now. I think like I am so okay with who I am that I'm okay with not being liked by everybody. And I know that I'm not going to be liked by everybody. And I know not everybody's going to agree with what I have to say. A major fear of me even starting this podcast was the fact that I thought I had to be a perfectionist. I thought I had to know exactly what I was talking about. I thought that I had to make sure that everybody agreed with what I was saying. And I was so afraid of starting to speak into a microphone and give advice and do this and that because I'm not a professional. And what if somebody heard something I said and said, well, she's stupid or she's dumb or that's not right. Like I was really afraid of that, and that held me back from starting my podcast for so long. And I've just gotten to a point now where I'm older and I'm like, I do know things. I am allowed to share my experiences. I'm allowed to have my own opinion, and not everybody's always going to agree with me. And if I waited to do things until every single person approved of it or agreed with it or liked it, then I would never accomplish anything, and I would never be my own person, and I would live in a constant state of fear and anxiety, and I would probably just debilitate me overall. I've been thinking recently like how horrible it would be for me to be on my deathbed, last breath, and all I'm thinking in my head is like, oh, I wish I did that, but I didn't because I was so afraid of what people would think. Like I would hate to die with ideas in my head. I would hate to die with regrets. I would hate to die with like things that I didn't put out there or speak my mind on or create because I was afraid of what somebody else who's also gonna die would think of me. So like that's kind of like where I'm at now. And I never used to think that I had this fear of rejection because I'm so public on the internet and so vulnerable on the internet and shared so much. And I'm realizing actually right now as I speak this out loud, when I started TikTok, I made these videos. And a lot of the times I would end up archiving a lot of videos that didn't do well, but the videos that do well I would keep up, obviously, because that was affirmation. Like that was a confirmation that what I was doing was right. Like I was seeing results and I was like, okay, this is working. And when I started sharing my dating content and stuff like that, and it started getting a lot of views and a lot of likes, I was like, okay, like I'm comfortable in this now. Like being vulnerable, sharing these experiences is what's getting approval, is okay. When you're getting approval, it's not as scary to like put things out there. I'm like putting this content out there that's getting, likes that people are drawn to. So I feel good about it. It's not until you have a video that doesn't do well or something that doesn't have likes or something that people don't agree with that then you're challenged to face that fear of rejection. My confidence has grown a lot. I think like there had been moments where I would have self-limiting beliefs. I would be afraid to post because what if it didn't do well? For the most part, I think that my want and my will to be successful in what I do overrode a lot of those feelings of rejection, because I would continue to post. Like if I was really afraid, I would have stopped posting. But a part of me did dial it back, where I stopped sharing certain things. I stopped sharing things that I thought wasn't going to be perceived correctly or right, or that would shed me in maybe a bad light to some people. And that's kind of when my content started to fall off. And that's when I started to see and to notice my fear of rejection getting in the way of my success and getting in the way of me doing things that I wanted to do or sharing content that I wanted to share that was authentic to me. And when you're not being your authentic self, that's when you're not going to be successful. And that's when you're abandoning your own wants and needs and desires. It just becomes this like bad spiral, because then I'm not sharing things. Then I'm not being the same person that I used to be on the internet. People aren't as drawn to my content. My content's not doing as well anymore. Then I'm, really internalizing it and just being like, well, am I not good enough? And I think a lot of my problems stem down to me not feeling good enough. Relating this back to how I grew up, because a lot of this stuff goes back to our parents, unfortunately. My parents separating at a young age, and I think about this constantly because my parents separated when I was 13. My sister was 19. So my sister had a lot more time with my dad. She saw a lot more of them being in like a healthy relationship, and she experienced more of that. And I kind of experienced a lot of the bad stuff. I would say like my sister was more like fully developed when my parents started to separate. So maybe she could process it more. And she also, when you're younger, you're very impressionable. So seeing my dad come in and out and all this stuff from a very young age, like that was what I was familiar with. That's what I was used to. My parents separated, and it's very easy for me now to just be like, oh, I have daddy issues. Like I have abandonment issues because my dad left. So that just makes sense. Daddy issues. He wasn't coming home. I have abandonment issues. I always just said that and never really like thought about what that really meant. And then I never really thought about, the fear of rejection either. So I have like this fear of abandonment, this fear of rejection. I was like, what's the difference between the two of these things? To put it simply, the fear of rejection, it's like the fear of society, of random people not accepting you. If they don't accept me, I'm going to feel bad about myself. The fear of abandonment is from people who you love and value. These are people who are close to you, and you're afraid of this person leaving you. You're not afraid of people leaving you who you don't care about, right? Like that's why I think like my fear of rejection never really came to the forefront for me, because I don't really care what like random people on the internet have to say about me. That's my job. I never really noticed it as much in my career. And like, and same with dating. It was like these random guys that I would go out with on like Hinge, and I'd met them one or two times. We had a bad date. He didn't text me. My whole world didn't crumble after that. Like I really didn't care that much because I didn't know this person and they didn't know me. So I didn't place my value on that. I think my fear of abandonment really does show though when I have a connection with somebody and then I'm scared of them leaving. And I think about how my sister is now like, married in a great relationship, has never really had too much of like bad dating trauma, never gotten caught in the same cycle as me. And she doesn't, I don't even think situationships were a thing when she was my age. Now that situationships are a thing, it's like the worst thing to happen to somebody with abandonment issues or, the fear of abandonment, because there's so much insecurity already in a situationship. We want to lean towards what's familiar. And for me, what was familiar was somebody coming in and out of my life hot and cold to get my parents' attention. In general, I rebelled a lot. I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done. I was a little bit crazy in high school. My first relationship, I had a pretty healthy relationship for what it was. We were young. Like, I would never say that we were good partners to each other by any means, really. Like, we didn't cheat. We were kind to each other. We loved each other. But I didn't even know what love languages were at that time. So I don't think that I was like really that great of a partner towards him and like catered towards his needs, because I just really wasn't aware. As I get older now and I'm reflecting on like these guys that I date, and I've dated a lot of different types of guys, and I've dated really great guys. And it's always the really good guys who treat me right, who I pick apart a reason not to like them. I always feel drawn back to the guys who stir up more anxiety in me and are hot and cold and are maybe not like the best partners, it's because they have these qualities that are similar to my father. I'm drawn towards people like that because that's what was familiar to me, and that's how I grew up learning love. That's how I felt love. When I find these guys, I don't want to say like I want to fix them or like they're like a challenge. It's a way I protect myself because it's predictable. I think when I'm like with a guy who I know is hot and cold, who's kind of has this similar pattern, it's a way of almost protecting myself because for one, I know like, okay, they're not rejecting me. They just have issues. They're just a fuckboy. And that's like the first story I tell myself to make myself feel better. The next story is like, I want to win their approval. I will overextend myself to try to get their attention. And I noticed this with one particular guy because I don't even use Snapchat like that. I don't even really use Snapchat. But when me and him were in contact, I would use Snapchat. And if I didn't hear from him, I'd post a story. And because I knew it would get his attention. And if he responded, I would feel good. And I'd be like, okay, good. Like he still likes me, like whatever. If he didn't, I'd feel like shit again. And then I'd do something else to get his attention. I would keep doing things to get his attention. And then when I got his attention, I would feel good. I would feel validated. And even if like we went cold for a little bit, it was like, I know I can get him back. This very toxic cycle of needing approval from this person who was constantly rejecting me, because when they rejected me, I would feel like shit. But then as soon as they, gave me approval, I would feel good. I'd be like on top of the world. And then as soon as that wore off, I'd start to feel like shit and I need to get their approval again. And it was just like this roller coaster. And then I got like addicted to that roller coaster, those feelings, that like rush of feelings. And that's not healthy and that's not normal. It wasn't until I like removed Snapchat and I was like, okay, I'm not posting on Snapchat anymore. Like if this guy needs me to post a story to get his attention, then like he's not my person. And that's when I kind of started to really look inside of myself and be like, why do I need this person's validation? And this is when things started to like really take a turn. And then I started talking to this new guy though. Me and him are talking like normally, all these things, but then I get in the way of myself and I'm afraid to ask him to hang out and I'm afraid to ask him to do things because I'm so afraid of being rejected. When you are afraid of being rejected, I essentially a little bit self-sabotaged, because not self-sabotage, but I got in my own way because it was like I wasn't reaching out to him, or I wasn't asking him to do things, or I was afraid to like text him first, or all these things. Then he's starting to probably think that I don't like him. Like Livy was like, he probably doesn't even think that you like him. By me not, reaching out to him, by me not texting him, I'm essentially already anxious about the thing that I think could possibly happen, which would be that he doesn't answer me or that he says no. And then the rejection is brought to the forefront. So to avoid feeling those feelings at all, I don't reach out to him because I'm already in my head judging myself. I'm already in my head rejecting myself. I'm already telling myself I'm not good enough and that this person might reject me. So to protect myself, I'm not going to reach out to them. Then it's just like, how am I ever going to have a healthy relationship with somebody if I can't feel comfortable reaching out to them? And it's also like crazy that when you're afraid to reach out to somebody because you're scared that they're going to reject you, you're putting all your self-worth on that person. You're putting them on a really high pedestal. You're thinking of them like as better than you. You have a low sense of self and a high self of others. I was like, why am I afraid of this person rejecting me when they haven't even done that yet? And they haven't even made any sort of hints that that is even a thing. This person is showing interest in me and I'm still afraid that they're going to reject me, maybe even more afraid that they're going to reject me because now I kind of like them and there's a connection there. Then if they reject me, I am going to feel like shit about myself. Once I like came to terms with this, I was like, okay, how do I get over this? And honestly, it's just like exposure therapy. I started to think to myself, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen? I asked him to hang out. He says no, or he rejects me. Then where am I? I'm in the same place that I already was. I'm still single, but now I kind of have an answer too, and I don't have to waste my time anymore. And then I can make a decision from there. If he's like, doesn't want to hang out with me, then I'm like, okay, I got over that fear. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still alive. I'm still a human. I'm still valuable. Nothing really bad happened. Now I can move on. Now I can stop wasting my time. I think the only way you're going to get over your fear of rejection is to just be okay with rejection and to just be so okay with yourself and know that being rejected, someone saying no to you, doesn't mean you're gonna die, doesn't mean that you're not valuable, doesn't mean that those things are true. It just means that they're not vibing with you. They're not your person. And this even goes with like jobs and all this stuff. It's just like, if you never put yourself out there, you're never gonna know. And then if you don't get that job, a lot of people like to say, rejection is protection, rejection is redirection. direction. And it's true. Okay, you did that. You tried. We know that we can survive that. So we progress. We keep going. We learn from it. A big hump I had to overcome was me getting comfortable again, which is posting whatever I wanted on the internet and not care what people think. When you start seeing results, when you start seeing some positive feedback, you become more okay with rejection. You start to feel more comfortable going after the things that you want. Even if it doesn't land every single time, it's still getting you closer to where you want to be. And if you never do that, you're never going to get there at all. And same goes for dating. And if you don't put yourself out there and you don't go and you try these things and you don't put your feelings on the line sometimes, you're never going to know how you're going to handle these things. You're never going to know how you're going to feel. And you're never going to have any mistakes. You're never going to learn from anything. I just am like in this, I don't care. And I'm not tying my self-worth to any individual person. How I view myself is the only important thing to me. Why people get so wrapped up in dating and get stuck in these toxic cycle with guys, it's because they're tying a lot of their identity to how that person feels about them or how that person responds to them. That's probably the worst thing that you could ever do, because when you do that, you're rejecting yourself and you're abandoning yourself. And when I was going after all these guys, or one guy in particular who really wasn't giving me the validation that I needed 100% of the time, wasn't making me feel good 100% of the time, to get his attention or to feel loved by him or liked by him or accepted by him, I would do things that maybe were out of character, or I would overextend myself and I would give too much, or I would make myself available maybe when I really wasn't available. And now I kind of have a chip on my shoulder, just not acting out of my character or not being myself. I'm abandoning my own needs. You're lowering your value if you're accepting things that aren't what you believe you deserve. If I'm like seeing this guy, he's never taken me on like a real nice date, or he's asking things of me and I'm going out of my way to do things for him, I am now rejecting my own needs. By constantly seeing him and hooking up with this person who isn't treating me right, I'm rejecting my own needs just to feel liked and wanted by this person for an hour or two, to make him also feel loved, to make him feel not rejected. I was so afraid of him thinking that I didn't like him. I was so afraid of not pleasing him that I was abandoning all my values and needs. And then the more I did that, the more I lowered my value, the more I accepted mistreatment. And then the worse I felt when I walked away from that situation. And I'm like, wow, I really just accepted the bare minimum just to feel good for 2 hours. Now he's on top of the world. I feel worse than I did before. And I've abandoned all my needs and I'm not listening to myself. And that's when I really started to get angry, was when I wasn't listening to myself and I wasn't listening to my body and I wasn't honoring the things that I need to feel good. At the end of the day, like, you have to feel so good and secure in this person that you're dating in the relationship that it's like, if they reject you, great, so what? I don't care. Like, it really has to be like a take it or leave it. And that's the only way it's going to ever be healthy. Otherwise, you're always going to compromise and then you're going to end up having a lot of resentment towards somebody. Now I'm really showing up for myself. And I'm really being honest with myself and what I need and desire. I just feel like I have such a different view on how I want to approach dating. And when I do approach it this time around, I'm going to be 100% authentically myself. I'm going to put it all on the line. And I don't mean like nonstop text this person first. I still want a masculine energy guy who's going to court me and text me and all this stuff, but it shouldn't be a game. I shouldn't have to put a wall up to protect myself and close myself off. I shouldn't feel like I can't ask this person to hang out. I shouldn't feel like I can't ask this person favors, or I can't do certain things in fear of rejection. If you just lead with that, it's never gonna go anywhere. And I told Livy, because she literally just said this to me about the guy being the one that got away, and I was like, Livy, oh my God. And I was like, you know what, but you're kind of right, and I would approach it so differently now. And she's like, how would you approach it? And I was just like, I just would be myself. I just wouldn't be afraid. And it was like at the beginning of me talking to him, I was myself. Like, I like text him whatever, like blah 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 blah. But it was when it started to get real that I started to be like, whoa, okay, maybe I shouldn't text him first. It was like when I started to build the smallest connection to this person was when I started to get afraid of the real rejection coming in. Now, when I start to get close to somebody or really feel a connection with somebody, I'm going to lean into it even more. And that doesn't mean shut off, protect yourself. It means be more vulnerable, open up more. And that's the only way that this connection is going to continue to grow and continue to go somewhere. Because at the end of the day, this person that you are dating also needs to feel wanted and loved. And reciprocated. Like nobody wants to date somebody who's not reciprocating. He's going to be like, what the fuck? Or she, they're going to be so confused. That's kind of how like I am going to go about my life differently. And that's how I've really gone about social media differently. I used to have this major fear of like posting reels and like talking on Instagram. Like I was like so afraid of it. And then one day I just did it. And now I'm like, wait, I love it. I love reels. And it was like this crazy switch now where it's like, now I can't stop posting reels. And it was something that I used to be so afraid of, but it really just shows you like the more you put out there, the more that you're going to become comfortable with it. And I think people who are like, how do I gain confidence? How do I get over this fear of this or that? You don't realize that there's no textbook answer. There's nothing that you can study. You can't like open a book and study. As many podcasts as you listen to, that's great, but are we applying it and are we doing it? Are we living it? You have to put yourself out there. And then when you start doing that, you're going to realize, okay, that wasn't that bad. And okay, maybe I got a hate comment. Maybe it didn't get a lot of likes, but am I still alive? Am I still here as a human? Do I still feel good? Yeah. As long as you're proud of the stuff you're putting out there and as long as it's authentically you, there's no reason why you should ever be afraid of it and like afraid of doing it. A lot of people are also always saying that they're afraid of, going after they want because what people will say around them. They're like, how did you start posting on TikTok or social media knowing that people from like your hometown would see it, knowing that people in like your real life would see it? I mean, I don't care. Because as much as like maybe my content might seem cringe at the beginning or they'll be like, what are you like trying to be an influencer? As soon as it becomes successful, no one's gonna have anything to say. And I will get to that success. And it just shows recently this has become a tangible thing because when I started posting on social, like, yeah, some people who were in my sorority or in my hometown or I had loose friendships with who knew me in real life started unfollowing me because they were like, what is this girl doing? And then just recently, I've had 2 people follow me, refollow me, who went to my high school. And then I have people who are in my DMs who I went to high school with being like, oh, I love seeing your growth. I love to see how far you've come. I had a friend text me yesterday. I just listened to your podcast. Like I loved it. And it's people who, I went to high school with who I maybe would have been afraid of their judgment at first. And yeah, people maybe are going to do that because it's not familiar and it's uncomfortable for them to see you in that light and to see you going after what you want because maybe they're rejecting themselves. To see it come full circle. And the people who you're so afraid of like rejecting you are then probably be the ones who end up looking up to you and like enjoying and consuming your content. So that's kind of like what I have my little spiel on like fear of abandonment and fear of rejection. I quickly actually just want to talk about something that's even scarier than all this is somebody who is a real candidate. And that's scary. It is really scary to like somebody and for them to like you back because now in my head, I'm already thinking of what if this goes wrong? What if I'm not healed enough for this person? What if they really like me and I don't get there as fast as them? What if they like me and I'm still thinking about this person from my past? What if they like me and I have to now hurt them? And that's something that's really held me back from dating as well. And I think that's kind of why I've took such a halt and why I've rejected so many people or pushed away so many people who were real prospects or that I really liked. And why I've self-sabotaged a little bit is because I'm a little bit afraid that I don't know how to be a good partner. I'm a little bit afraid that I haven't healed enough or that these insecurities are going to be stirred up and then I'm going to end up ruining something that could have been a good thing. So I kind of just try and steer clear of it altogether. And that's not healthy. And that's not how I'm going to grow. And that's not how I'm going to learn. And that's not how I'm going to find a person. I am really leaning into just the people and the things that make me feel good and make me feel most myself. I'm afraid of something real because it also means that I'm putting a lot on the line with that person. I might get rejected. I might get hurt. It also means closing the book on my past and somebody who rejected me for so long, who at one point I really valued their opinion and really liked. I still hold a place in my heart for that person. It scares me to move on because it means letting that person go. I think I've done a really good job of in my head being like, I'm not tied to a particular outcome, but if I were to like move on, I really can't be tied to any outcome. There's no outcome. There's no future with that person. And that horrifies me because for the longest time, winning that person's approval, winning that person's love was my main source of validation, was my main source of feeling good. It's going to be really weird to not care at all what that person thinks and to just not care about that person's validation, to not seek their love or affection ever again. And that's really weird because like I'm always trying to find that in somebody because of my father. I never tied that loose end with my dad almost. So it's like any other person who comes into my life who has characteristics of my father, I'm now going to try and win that validation. And it's not my dad now, it's somebody else. And it's almost like, well, I feel like I'm missing something if I'm not trying to fix something or somebody or myself. If there's not something wrong, am I gonna feel good? How am I gonna feel? It's just like a very weird because it's not familiar for me. I'm gonna be like, am I gonna get bored? And that's obviously something that like I need to work on. Like being secure doesn't mean being bored. Being secure doesn't mean that you're not happy. Being secure doesn't mean you're settling. Navigating this is gonna be like a new chapter for me. It's really exciting. It's also really scary, but I feel more confident about how I'm going about dating now than I ever have in my entire life, because one, I'm the most aware and most confident in myself, and I am excited to attract the right person, and I'm excited to explore something with the right person. I'm excited just to be myself. I'm ready to just be loved for who I am. It's really empowering to date with the mindset of this person would be so lucky to be with me. That's been the thing I've been telling myself recently, is like, this person would be so lucky to be with me. This person would be so lucky to have me in their life. This person would be so lucky to experience my energy every single day. I know I'm a catch and I know I'm one of a kind. And just telling myself this stuff every day and validating myself has helped so much. And I'm excited to see how this like manifests into my dating. The fact that I put up with it, so much and sacrifice so much just shows how much I can love the wrong person. And when the right person comes, they're going to be so freaking lucky. Yeah, I'm just like really okay with possibly getting rejected now. And that's just life. Rejection is life. If you're not getting rejected by things, you're not putting yourself out there enough, and you're not putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, and you're not going to grow. If you're just constantly staying in a state of things that make you comfortable, if you're constantly staying in a state of familiarity, you're never going to get to where you want to be, and you're never going to end up where you want to be. I am just so excited for this new me. Like I really do feel like a new woman. I don't want anybody who's listening to feel like they can't be themselves. I don't want anybody who's listening to be on that deathbed and wish that they did something and didn't do it because they were so afraid of what people would think or say about them. The only way that we are all going to get through this life is if we are all ourselves and we all go after the things that we want. Don't be afraid of people not liking you or accepting you, because it has nothing to do with you and it doesn't devalue you. It doesn't mean you're not successful. People's opinions are merely opinions. And if someone doesn't like you, that's fine. There's billions of people in the world. If someone doesn't like you, somebody else will. We don't need to be accepted by everybody to live or to be happy. The times that I was worried the most about other people's approval was when I was the most unhappy and the least successful. So go after your dreams, go after what you want. Don't worry about people rejecting you, and don't let self-limiting beliefs get in the way of yourself. You can absolutely have and do all the things that you want. I hope you go out there and you do something that challenges you today. Whenever you're listening to this, or maybe this week, do something that you're afraid to do. Put yourself out there just to see what happens, and tell me about it in the comments, or tell me about it over Instagram. Tag me in it. Tell me something that you did that was uncomfortable, that you survived, and I hope that it's a part of your success story, and it will be a part of your success story. I want to know like how you guys are pushing yourselves and how we're all gonna get over this fear of rejection and abandonment together, and the world will be a better place because of it, I promise. And you will find your person or your place or your thing faster if you put yourself out there and you challenge yourself. I love you guys so much. I hope you loved this episode. Please comment if you're watching on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple. I hope this girl therapy session was everything that you needed and more. I love you all so much. I will chat with you next week. Mwah!